Hey everybody, welcome to Contest Prep University. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Adam Atkinson. Today we're going to start a series on fat loss options. And at the time of this recording, we are into the new season. The Arnold has happened. I'm doing peak week plans for clients right now. And yet, of course, for some people, they're just getting started for summer or fall or any kind of a personal goal. And I had a conversation with a client this morning, Adam, and we went right to engineering that calendar. What do we need to lose and how much time? So speed came up. So as a first topic, just discussing the variables of speed of loss, rate of fat loss. Of course, my concerns are comfort for the client, making sure it's sustainable so they're not crashing and creating tendencies of binge eating, muscle preservation, making any progress we can along the way so it's not just all about fat loss. But go ahead and tell me what your thoughts are when you start mapping this out for clients, that their speed of fat loss.
Speed. Also, I always like to say trajectory on, where's their starting point? Are their genetics going to make them likely a slower loser too? Also, I do like to bank a couple like pit stops in there for diet breaks, maybe even longer weekend refeeds, things of that nature, to de-stress the body. So just like if you're planning a road trip, you can plan, maybe an hour or two worth of stops, depending on the distance that you're going. And the longer the distance, the more you may need those breaks along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I first think there are pretty normal standards that we can all consider when we are looking at the speed at which somebody can even lose body fat. So if you go to the basic math that a lot of people rely on, a pound of body fat is approximately 3,500 calories, 7 days in the week. So if you want a pound loss per week, you got to have a 500 calorie deficit. In this series, we're going to talk about cardio and methodology and so forth. But just sticking to the topic of speed, I just don't think it's very doable. I told a client yesterday, you're losing about 3/4 of a pound a week. That's pretty good for your frame. Like you're not going to get much more than that, or we have to really dive into calorie deficits that are going to be riskier for muscle retention and so forth, and possible, metabolic suppression. And then similarly with this client this morning, a male with a lot of muscle and a lot of metabolic capacity, he thought, hey, I could lose 2 pounds a week. And I said, well, maybe some weeks you can, and maybe even most weeks you can, but we can't rely on that. So you describing having some planned breaks and holidays or things like that. I also plan for a slowdown for the fact that when you get leaner, every bit you lose in volume is a higher percentage of your body mass. So it's going to get a little bit tougher to lose those pounds at the end, even though visually they may have more impact.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to circle back around to that. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see coaches make. They're like 2 pounds a week, but they're equating that 2 pounds into the home stretch when, 2 pounds could be, 20% of somebody's existing fat stores left in their body. It's just not going to be like that. And I often find my clients when they ask me, what's my pace of loss per week? And when they get that married to the number, it almost messes up the entire prep because, they're basing each week on whether they hit that loss or not. They're going to have some faster weeks, some slower weeks. And we do want to plan on the end of the week to be slower, or the final weeks to be slower. So these are things people mess up quite often.
Yeah. And when somebody asks, how long do I need? When should I start dieting? I always factor in about a month for hopefully some ramping up metabolically. We're going to be increasing food. So that's a month where you have to be ready early. Then I factor in about another month for intentional diet breaks, unintentional slowdowns, just making sure we're really hitting the mark, especially if this is a client that we're just not sure. We haven't worked together. We don't know what that final weight should be. So now you're adding 2 months just on top of what you think you're going to need. And so I come back to the fact that that rate of weight loss is going to be dependent on a lot of factors. And you probably want to be a little bit conservative in how you judge that. But again, there's just so much we can lose without really risking the whole ball game with metabolic slowdown and just muscle loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, stay tuned. We're going to cover some things like genetic factors. Adam mentioned that. We're going to talk about the different methodologies, carbs, fat, cardio, etc. So we'll see you next time in this topic in Contest Prep University.